Let's have a look at how to troubleshoot our income statement after a stock entry has taken place. Once you are happy with the entry made and diligently worked through and confirmed all totals inputted, you can update your stock entry file and view your income statement. In our income statement tutorial, we discussed how to interpret this report to ensure your system financials are accurate and inputted to the best of your knowledge. If you are unfamiliar with this report, please view that tutorial found in our reporting playlist before continuing on. Of course, we understand that human error may take place and discrepancies can be found to challenge the validity of the report. Where the entries are made with the best intentions, it is imperative that we investigate our stock categories and ensure that we are familiar with analyzing these weekly and monthly reports that support our income statements. Let's open up an income statement. To do this, select Reports, then Income Statement. Select the period and click OK. The system will then load the relevant income statement for that period. For this example, we will be looking at a month-to-month income statement. Let's click on Print to view. We can see here our various direct cost categories and expense categories listed here. When looking through this report, we should not see any negative usage. Usage is determined through the opening stock value plus any purchases loaded less the closing stock value. The only category allowed to have negative usage is our recipe category, since we can increase our stock for this category without actually buying in anything, thus ending with potentially more stock than what we opened with. Also note that the income statement only looks at our opening stock entry, closing stock entry, and purchases. So these areas would be the first to target once an issue has been highlighted. Looking at our bread category here, for example, we see a high usage total. Our opening stock is worth almost 4,000 Rand plus our purchases of almost 7,000 Rand, less a closing stock value of almost 4,000 Rand, which brings us to our usage total here. If this were to be of concern, I would kick off my investigation with the opening stock entry sheet. Yes, the opening entry stock file will be locked, however, you are allowed to view the entry. Let's exit and click on Stock, then Stock Entry. Select the applicable opening stock entry file. You will be reminded that you cannot make any changes to the file. At this stage, it would also be helpful if you kept the original opening stock entry hard copies so you can refer to them and see if they match up with what was entered here. You should check both counts and unit costs for each item affecting the category in question. If you found that there is indeed errors to be corrected, you can call our support team to inquire to open the file. However, this will have to be done through an email explaining why and what needs to be corrected, accompanied by authorization from the business owner. We can then unlock the file for a period of 1 day so that you can make corrections as needed. Keep in mind that you are not only correcting this opening entry, but manipulating and changing the outcome of the previous month's income statement too, since this opening entry is also your closing entry for the previous month end. Changes to these financial reports are not to be taken lightly. If you are happy with your opening entry, then let's move on to look at our closing entry file. In our example, we used a previous month-end income statement, so both our opening and closing entries will be locked at this point. However, ideally, when troubleshooting your income statement right after a stock entry took place, the closing stock file should still be open and ready for you to make amendments on. Again, check all counts and unit cost prices. Note that any changes made to these stock entries are logged in our security log file found under the Setup tab and System Selection. Click on the log viewer and under Log ID, you can select the Stocks option and any changes made will reflect here. Select the Reports tab and click on Purchases. Select the relevant purchase period matching your income statement period, with a slight difference, that is, we do not select month to month, but we will select the first to the last day of the month. If we were to include the last day of the previous month here, it will include purchases for that day. Let's select the Detail dial so we can view all relevant information pertaining any purchases made. From here, if you suspect a certain category, you can select that cat only by clicking on the drop down here and choosing the right one. If you are uncertain, then you will need to hunt through all of the purchases made. Again, it is a good idea to keep hard copies of the supply invoices so you can refer to these when working through the purchase report. Double check if stock bought in were inputted correctly by quantity and cost. You can highlight any problematic items entered incorrectly so that we can amend these purchases and re-enter the invoice correctly. To fix these errors, we can select the Purchases tab and select Batch Future Purchases. The date to select here will be the date that the stock actually came in on and was inputted incorrectly into the system. Click on the date and match the date entered incorrectly from the first entry. Dependent on if this invoice has been paid, you will select the relevant payment method here. Under the supplier reference, you can enter COR for correction, followed by the supplier invoice number. You can keep your name as the purchase reference and ensure you select the correct tax mode. After these details are confirmed, we now need to correct our stock. Depending on what was entered incorrectly, we will need to match that exact quantity or cost, but we'll purchase it in as a negative value. For example, if we bought in 2 cases of Coke and our pilot unit is each, however, the manager entered 2 instead of 48 units, we will then click on Add, search for our relevant item, and enter a -2. We will also match the cost as a negative. The system will ask to confirm the quantity and will warn you about a unit cost difference. In this case, when entering negative unit costs, you will always say no to update. Now we have removed the error from the system, but we will need to replace it with the correct purchase. Click on Add and enter the correct item details. Now when prompted to update the unit cost, take a minute to consider if you need to update or not. If this is a correction, you may have received the item in since this purchase was made, and you may have entered that cost correctly, so the system should reflect the most recent cost price. However, if not, update to reflect the most accurate unit cost. If updating this, it will update your master file and costings. Remember, we are not reloading the whole invoice, only the items that were purchased incorrectly. If you need to add more invoices, select New and Continue. If not, when clicking Exit, the system will ask you to post the purchases. Click on Yes. Now we can return to the income statements and view the changes that may have taken effect. At this point, if you work through your opening and closing entries and corrected potential incorrect purchases, and you are still unhappy with your cost of sales or specific categories, you will then need to establish whether this is due to overportioning, theft, lack of sales inputted, inaccurate costings, or stock-linked discrepancies. These questions can be addressed by further investigation into our stock reports, such as our bulk and prep variance reports or our raw material usage report. We will discuss these reports in greater detail within their own tutorials. If you are keen to learn more about stock analysis and troubleshooting discrepancies, check out our reporting playlist. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe.